Hi everyone, Emily Teacher here, and today we'll be reading Harvest of Shame. Many Americans are lucky to have access to ample supplies of fruits and vegetables in their supermarkets 12 months a year. And who harvests all this food? More than 1 million women, children, and men do. They crisscross the United States picking asparagus and strawberries in Washington state, citrus fruits in Florida, apples in New York state, and a host of different fruits and vegetables in California. These laborers are called migrant farm workers because they move from place to place wherever crops need picking. Most would prefer permanent full time employment, but it is not often available to them. Okay, so we're talking about fruits and vegetables, how we get them, where they come from. Lots of different kinds: asparagus, strawberries, citrus fruits. So that's fruits like oranges, grapefruits, and lemons, and a lot of other kinds of different fruits and vegetables. We're learning about the migrant farm workers and why full time work is not available to them. So let's see who migrant farm workers are and what they do during their work. The workday is strenuous. Pickers bend and stoop, often under a blazing hot sun, and the day is exceptionally long, from 7 in the morning until 7 at night. That's a full 12 hours. Their only respite may be a 20-minute lunch break. It is considered menial work. Wages are low, and laborers are paid only when they pick. If it rains or if they are too sick to work, they get nothing. What's more, they often have difficulty obtaining adequate medical treatment when they are ill or injured. So, these migrant farm workers, they go from place to place to pick the fruits and vegetables that are ready to be harvested. They work very, very long days and maybe only have a 20-minute break throughout 12 hours. They don't get paid a lot, especially if they're not at work. They only get paid if they are there and they are picking. They have hard time to get medical treatment as well when they're sick or they get hurt. The children suffer enormous disadvantages because their education is disrupted as they move from school to school. In fact, only one student in 10 graduates from high school. Young people often drop out of school altogether to toil in the fields alongside their parents. It is there that they may be exposed to the chemical pesticides that are routinely sprayed on crops. One California study demonstrated that the cancer rate among migrant workers' children was 12 times higher than the national average rate. So, children often have to do this picking work as well, even though they're just kids. Their education is disrupted. They keep moving, right? So they can't keep up with their schoolwork. Maybe one student out of every 10 will graduate from high school. They often drop out or they stop going to school so that they can work more. And during this work, there's a lot of chemicals, these pesticides that they're being exposed to and can cause cancer. In the 1960s, laborers in California began to agitate for more progressive working conditions. The growers were indifferent to their demands. So the migrant workers, under the leadership of two Mexican Americans, Cesar Chavez and Dolores Fernandez Huerta, formed a labor union called the United Farm Workers of America. When growers tried to oppose the union, it called strikes and organized boycotts of California lettuce and grapes. There were years of struggle, many organized marches, and sometimes violent clashes. But in the end, the majority of growers capitulated. In 1966, they recognized the union's right to represent workers. So, after a long and hard battle, they had strikes, boycotts. Finally, the growers allowed the migrant workers to have a union to represent them, or a group that could speak for them to help them get what they needed in their work. Despite the union's efforts, conditions have improved minimally since the 1960s. One notable accomplishment has been the creation of the East Coast Migrant Head Start Project, which administers many child care centers for migrants. Started in 1974, it now serves over 3,000 children annually along the East Coast. Motivation, Education, and Training, MET, is a similar program that helps migrant workers in 5 states. Though these programs have helped improve conditions in some areas, The need for additional programs is urgent. Educational programs could lower illiteracy rates among migrant workers and their families, while outreach programs could help improve migrant workers' living conditions. Many workers survive without running water or electricity. These necessary additions and repairs to homes would help convert them from inadequate hovels into acceptable community housing. So, since this change in the 60s for the unions, there have been some improvements, right? Only a little bit, but some improvements for child care centers, taking care of programs to help children stay in schools, and other programs that help the living conditions of the workers so that they may be able to have water and electricity in their homes. In 1960, a CBS documentary film about migrant workers aired on television the day after Thanksgiving. It brought into people's homes the truth about how the nation's crops were harvested, and it shocked the nations. 50 years later, in 2010, CBS television broadcast a program to mark the occasion. It showed that while there had been some improvement in wages and working conditions, much remains to be done. The name of the documentary film is Harvest of Shame. So while there have been improvements since 1960, there have not been a lot of improvements for migrant workers. So a very informative article here. We do have links that are related to each story. If you would like to see the link related to this video, you can find it down in the description below.